Tyson Bagent, we've gotten more games than perhaps we'd want to see of him. 4 games in all the starts he's had. What did you make? What have you seen from him, and specifically, what did you make of his game last night?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to do anything other than just say pretty awesome for a Division II undrafted guy to not only get this opportunity, but he's earned this opportunity. So winning the job in camp, playing really well in the preseason, and then coming in and getting these opportunities to play. Many guys go their whole career without getting this kind of opportunity in the regular season. And to say that it's, to go out there and win, right? He hasn't fallen all over himself. They found ways to win. They've been struggling to win. And so that in and of itself is a really cool experience, opportunity, all of the above. And I think you have to acknowledge that part of it is awesome. I think when you turn on the film and you start to really dig into it, you can start to see a number of, potential issues, concerning issues, some holes, blind spots. But you got to celebrate the outcomes. You got to celebrate the opportunity. All those things it's pretty awesome story.
The QB school, I don't know your analytics. It seems to me when you do a Justin Fields breakdown, it seems to get more than a lot of other quarterbacks around the NFL. So you've done plenty of Justin Fields. Offensively, is there much of a difference between what Luke Getsy is asking Tyson Bagent to do and what he's asking Justin Fields to do?
I mean, I think there's definitely a difference. I would say it would be hard not to call plays differently for a guy like Justin Fields just because he's so dynamic of an athlete. And that's not taking anything away from Tyson Bagent. I think Tyson Bagent actually probably didn't use his legs to run as much as we've seen him use his legs in the past, this most recently on Thursday night. But Justin Fields is a unique, special unicorn talent running the ball as far as the dynamic athlete when he gets vertical. And I think he has a really strong arm and can push it down the field, probably, different skill set than Tyson Bagent throwing it. And so, yeah, you're going to call things differently. It's going to look different. The quarterback run game is going to be really different. But at the same time, you can see the things that are consistent in that offense, what they try to be. They tried to incorporate more perimeter screens this year. They've tried to be more intentional with getting the ball out of their hand quickly. Now, that's not always the outcome, but you can see where kind of the underlying foundation for what they want to be and grow into, has been consistent between both those quarterbacks. Now, I think if you ask Justin, there are things from Bagent's performances that he's going to try to take. And I think that protecting the ball last night or, not turning the ball over, I shouldn't say protecting the ball because there were opportunities for the other team to get the ball. They just didn't. And so finding ways to not get turnovers, to make sure you're in every game is a really smart strategy in the league for a lot of teams.
Have you been surprised at how few design runs there seem to have been for Justin Fields early on in the season?
I mean, 100%. Just because I felt like they found that sweet spot or they found a recipe that worked last year after a number of weeks. I feel like it was actually after a primetime game that everybody, all of a sudden they were like, well, this is the menu that should have been at the entire time. And I could see why you wouldn't want to live there just because of the amount of hits and the wear and tear that puts on a quarterback. But you also you can't go all the way to the flip side and do none of that. And so for whatever reason, they kind of, it sounds like forced Justin or kind of coached Justin to be a little bit outside of what he's comfortable doing, what comes naturally. And so just finding that sweet spot between running him, letting him be the dynamic athlete that he is and can be, and it's proven that he can do and be successful in the league with a little bit more of a, traditional smart, let's take some hits off, let's get rid of the ball a little bit quicker, all those types of things that go into probably what many people would consider a comprehensive, robust NFL offense.
You call it turn downs, right? When Justin Fields doesn't throw to an open receiver, and we've seen a lot of it. But one of the things that's odd is that he seems to be staring down the receiver that he then turns down, right? He doesn't seem to be completely confused about the play design in itself. He just doesn't necessarily pull the trigger, and it seems to happen regularly. What do you make of that, where he seems to understand where to go with the ball, but just doesn't go there with the ball?
It's hard to make sense of. And again, it's really hard to speak in generalities like this where, you're not looking at specific film and we don't know what he's being taught to do. But in general, I would say if those were the characteristics you're describing and that they're accurate, I would say he's probably be playing a little bit too tight, either because they're asking him to protect the ball above all else, or he just doesn't quite, they don't have the details and timing and nuance of what it takes to let this thing rip on time with anticipation in the league. You turn on the Chicago offense, and there's essentially zero anticipation. Tyson Bagent last night threw one speed out in the 2 minute right before this end of the second quarter that had some anticipation. But you see almost no anticipation baked into what they do in their drop back game. And so it's one of those things where, is it Justin Fields? Well, now we've seen Tyson Bagent play, and he really doesn't play with anticipation either. So it could be a combination of, those players, the system, the demands, the expectations, all of the above. But for me, normally when I see a quarterback and it looks like their eyes are in the right spot and their feet time up to the depth of the route, and for whatever reason they're not throwing it, it's hard to make sense of that. I don't want to put the blame at the quarterback's feet. You certainly could. You could make the argument. You could also make the argument that it's on the system, the expectations, how they're asking him to play, what all those variables look like that none of us will ever know if we're not in that quarterback room.
Actually, I wrote down something you said. You said, room for growth for anticipation or anticipatory throws for Justin Fields is massive. And we all know what may be looming, especially last night. The Bears find themselves with the number 1 overall pick with Carolina losing. How quickly can you close that gap of anticipatory throws at all at this stage of the game for Justin Fields? Can they get him where they want him to go? Because in the NFL, if you can't do that, you're not necessarily going to be the quarterback that they want you to be as a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I think he's in a really tough spot coming back from an injury. I thought he was playing better. Now coming back, quote unquote, fighting for his job, for his opportunity, and probably fighting for that staff's opportunity, if we're being honest as well. And so there's going to be a lot of tension around that building, a lot of tension around that organization moving forward. You hope that you just go out there and play your absolute best football and kind of let the cards fall where they may. But it's one of those things where I absolutely think that Justin Fields can evolve and grow into bringing anticipation into his game. The reality is it might not be with this staff. It might not be in this system. And that's no knock on Justin or the staff. It's just what we've seen up until this point. At some point, that becomes the evidence. You can't say, hey, we're going to wait till next season. We're going to wait till next week. We're going to wait till after this bye. At some point, it is what it is. And it just hasn't been good enough up until this point. You hope that it turns around quickly. I don't think there's any reason to think that it couldn't turn around. We've seen them kind of turn 180s in what they do. You just need it to happen now.
Does he stand a chance to get to where you just mentioned with Luke Getsy as offensive coordinator?
I don't think I'm optimistic, just like optimistic for all quarterbacks that I think are really good. I don't think there's any evidence to say that will be the case, unfortunately. We're to the point where we probably have enough evidence to know what it is at this moment. I think he certainly has the skill set to be able to do it. I think what they do on the perimeter doesn't look like he's going to get that opportunity this season. I hope I'm wrong.
Back to Tyson Bagent for a minute. A lot has been made of his arm strength. What do you make of his arm strength? Did Dad take all of it? Did Dad take all of it as the arm wrestler?
I'm surprised. The dad has got a really cool story. The whole thing is a cool story. It's a combination of things, I think, I'm a Division II guy. Okay, now, this is hard for me to say because even now I still believe that I was a Division I guy. But there's a reason why I went to Division II. There's a reason why every Division I team passed on me. There's a reason why every Division I team passed on Tyson Bagent, the prospect. And so to think that he's going to have a cannon is just probably unrealistic. I think, can his arm get stronger? Absolutely. He threw the ball down the field. Like we saw go balls go down the field. We saw deep shots. What you don't see is him ripping the ball across the middle of the field. You don't see those deep in drive throws that you see a lot of other guys make. You don't see off platform like overthrows. In fact, there were a number of throws. In fact, both the throws that off the top of my head where he threw contested like go balls down the left sideline. They had big over opportunities in that game that he basically, I felt like on the film, just predetermined where he was going to go with the ball. And so I'd like to see him get through his reads and drive the ball down the field. but you see evidence of it. You just don't see a consistency. The one play that I think of that by far was the best play of the night was that 4th and 3, where he goes left to right all the way across the field, has an unbelievable base, and drives the ball down the field like that. If you can put that in a bottle, you're going to be in the league for a decade. Like that is playing quarterback in the league. He just needs to do that, more than one snap every 4 games.
So you think he has an opportunity, at the floor of all of this? You think he has an opportunity to, to secure a good number 2 job with the amount of film he's put out there currently, with growth expected, but the moment doesn't seem too big for him. Albeit at times it's not that he always makes the right play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to artificially put a cap on him and say he can or can't do that. I think up until this point, if he was to not play another snap, I would be surprised if Chicago didn't try to upgrade the position. So, I mean, I think he can do it. I think I'll move forward with the expectation that he will get better. And, for probably 30 teams that you play last night, that's probably not a winning performance. And so the reality is that they got to win. It's awesome. It feels better than losing. And the film is the film.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I think they may lose to 30 other teams with the way they played last night, but they got the Carolina Panthers. How good is Caleb Williams? Is there how much hyperbole is out there, right? And how much is Caleb Williams potentially an organizational changing player?
It's funny because I do a lot of my college football watching in the draft season, like January, February, March, April. I got a chance to see Caleb throw this past summer in person, and it's really impressive. Ball comes off of his hand as well as anybody I've seen in the college level. I'm a big fan of how Caleb plays. I know I'm not good at my Saturdays are probably like many, old guy Saturdays where you got a lot of youth sports. You're not sitting in front of a TV as much as you maybe want to, and you don't get a chance to see him play very much. That being said, I've certainly felt like the Caleb kind of criticism on my timeline on different social media things has ramped up. I don't know. It's kind of like what's that movie called? Draft, or the Kevin Costner movie where you kind of write down who he thinks is his number one. I would have written down Caleb Williams no matter what, in July, and I still feel the same way. I mean, I think he's that good of a player. I think people love to toss around the term generational talent. I don't really care about phrases like that. I think he's by far the best college football player. I think he's going to be an outstanding NFL player. I hope he goes to a situation that allows him to thrive, and we'll see what happens.
What does he do so well?
I mean, he does a number of things well. I think the thing that would be the number one trait people would name is he's the epitome of a playmaker. Now, he can get himself in trouble with that, and there's a flip side of that. But he can create, and as well as anybody, he's got great arm talent. He can make all the throws in structure, out of structure, but he's a creative player. So when things break down, it's not things break down and you hope it's not a disaster or it's going to be a throwaway. It's going to be a big play. It's going to be a magical play. He's going to do it off platform, and that stuff you can't teach. That's why he's such a talented guy.
So much of the rest of the season for the Bears will be about, is Justin Fields good enough, or is he franchise quarterback, right? It's going to feel very Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams if they're there to take him. But I also look at how many teams around the NFL would take Caleb Williams if he was there to take, right? Would the Dallas Cowboys do it with Dak Prescott? Would the Bills do it with Josh Allen? I know that this, at least in Chicago, it's Fields versus Williams, but I look at it as Caleb Williams and the NFL. I mean, would it be 75% of teams would take this player?
Yeah, that's a question I had not thought of from that lens. I would say yes, you're right. I absolutely believe that Caleb would be an upgrade for many NFL quarterbacks in their situations. I guess I don't think of it like that. If this makes sense, I think of, Caleb Williams he's got an opportunity to be, Justin Fields. I guess I think of it individually for these guys. I personally am just a fan of football, want them both to have great careers and think that there's space for both of them to do that. The reality is Justin Fields' time in Chicago might have already come and gone. That doesn't mean that he won't get another opportunity. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have value. That just means that it might have run its course already and we already watched the end of what it is, and so we're just kind of wrapping up the credits, and that's the reality of the business. I don't, and people might not want to hear this, but like, I don't think that it's a great situation for Caleb to walk into if he is the answer there. That's there, and I don't think there are a lot of great situations for Caleb to walk into. There are some teams that are probably better than others, but the reason those teams are drafting one is because they have all sorts of holes in their roster, and you saw the kind of evidence with that with what Bryce Young was dealing with last night. And so it's one of those things where you're like, hey, congratulations, you're the best player in the country. Now you're in the worst team with probably the worst setup, the worst supporting cast. Good luck. We'll see you in a couple of years.
If you could pair one offensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator type or style with Justin Fields, is there one out there you can think of?
Oh, I mean, I think Justin would thrive in many offensive situations. I think anybody who plays quarterback would probably love to play quarterback with Andy Reid, just with the creativity and the kind of tip of the spear that he's been at. Nowadays, I think Mike McDaniel is a great answer to that as well. Kyle Shanahan is always the kind of go-to answer with that. But I just love the creativity that Andy Reid and McDaniels have shown over the last few years. I feel like they've kind of pushed the league a little bit further down the rabbit hole of what offense is, what the passing game is, as the league continues to be so, space oriented, spread oriented, and the creative element of what they do and the drop back stuff.
JT, I appreciate it, man. I love what you do. You really, really get inside, get in the weeds, and help us understand. It's hard to look at that tan of yours in November, but thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Judson. Always a pleasure, man.